Welcome, dear little dreamers, to a tale where magic softly sparkles in the corners of the forest and kindness hides in the most surprising places. Tonight, we will follow the gentle footsteps of a kind-hearted gnome who teaches us that true friendship is found in the simplest of moments. Close your eyes and let your imagination guide you to a world where stars twinkle like diamonds and every tree whispers secrets of wonder. In this story, magic flows not through spells, but through love, care, and understanding between friends. Get ready to join the adventure that begins in a small enchanted village, where a tiny gnome waits to share his biggest secret. So come closer, listen carefully, and let this magical journey begin. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a kind and curious young princess who loved to explore the beauty of nature. She often wandered into the royal gardens, where flowers bloomed in every color, and sunlight made her gown sparkle like gold. The princess was not only beautiful, but also gentle, with a heart full of kindness for every living creature. While her parents were busy ruling the kingdom, she often spent her days in quiet wonder. She dreamed of magic, of hidden places beyond the castle gates, and of secrets waiting to be discovered. Her heart whispered that an adventure was about to begin very soon. One sunny morning, the princess found a small trail hidden behind a curtain of ivy in the garden walls. The path was narrow, winding deeper and deeper into the thick forest, where the air shimmered with golden dust. Curious, she stepped carefully onto the trail, feeling the vines and leaves brush against her hands. She could hear birds singing softly above, as if guiding her into something mysterious. The deeper she walked, the brighter the light seemed to glow between the branches. It felt like the forest itself was alive, waiting for her arrival. Suddenly, from behind a tall oak tree, a tiny gnome peeked out with a playful twinkle in his eyes. His red hat was tilted to one side, and his long beard sparkled in the sunlight as though it were touched by magic. The princess gasped in delight, for she had never seen such a creature before in her life. The gnome smiled mischievously, as though he had been expecting her all along. "Greetings, fair princess," he said with a cheerful voice that sounded like bells. At that moment, the princess knew her adventure had truly begun. The princess knelt gracefully to greet the little gnome, her gown brushing against the mossy ground. She looked into his eyes and saw both kindness and mystery hidden within them. The gnome carried a lantern that glowed with soft golden light, casting warm beams around them. He bowed politely and introduced himself as a guardian of the magical forest. "You have entered a secret place," he said, "and not all who wander here are so lucky." The princess smiled warmly, already curious about what wonders he might show her. With a dramatic gesture, the gnome reached behind his cloak and pulled out a tiny bag that shimmered with enchantment. As he loosened the string, brilliant golden light poured from it, filling the air with sparkles. The princess covered her mouth in awe, her eyes wide with amazement at the glow. The gnome chuckled softly, clearly enjoying her wonder. "This bag," he explained, "carries treasures not of gold, but of magic and wisdom." The princess leaned closer, her curiosity stronger than ever. As the bag glowed, the forest around them began to stir with life. Rabbits peeked shyly from behind the bushes, while squirrels scampered up the trees to get a better look. Birds flew in graceful circles above, their feathers catching the sunlight like jewels. Even a gentle deer stepped quietly from the shadows, its eyes calm and curious. The princess felt as though she was part of something much greater than herself. She whispered softly, "It's like the whole forest is alive with magic." But then, with a sly grin, the gnome quickly hid the bag behind his back. The golden light disappeared, leaving the princess puzzled and curious. She tilted her head, wondering why he had taken it away so suddenly. "Patience, dear princess," the gnome said playfully, "for not all secrets can be revealed at once." His eyes sparkled with mischief, making her laugh despite her curiosity. She realized then that the gnome was both wise and tricky, a combination that made him even more mysterious. The gnome waved his lantern and began walking deeper into the woods, beckoning the princess to follow. She stepped carefully behind him, her shoes crunching softly on the forest floor. The trees grew taller and closer together, their branches weaving like walls around her. Strange glowing mushrooms lit the path, their tiny sparks guiding her way. Though shadows surrounded them, the princess felt safe, trusting her little guide. Her heart beat faster with excitement, knowing she was being led somewhere magical. The forest grew darker, with towering trees standing like silent giants above her. Mysterious glowing eyes peered from the shadows, making the princess cling to the warmth of the gnome's lantern. Yet, every time she felt nervous, the moonlight would break through the branches, casting silver beams across her path. The deeper they walked, the more the air shimmered with quiet magic. It felt as though they were crossing into another world entirely. The princess whispered, "I feel like I'm walking in a dream." At last, they reached a crystal-clear pond that glowed under the silver moonlight. The water rippled gently, sparkling as though stars had fallen into its depths. Fireflies danced gracefully above the surface, filling the night with soft golden light. The princess knelt by the edge, her reflection rippling across the water. "This place is beautiful," she said in awe. The gnome simply smiled, as though he knew something more awaited her. Without warning, the gnome leapt high into the air and splashed into the magical pond. The water glowed even brighter, pulsing with rings of golden light. The princess gasped, covering her mouth in surprise. "What are you doing?" she cried, worried for him. But instead of sinking, the gnome swam happily, as though the pond itself welcomed him. Slowly, the water began to swirl with magic, revealing a secret she could not yet understand. Before her eyes, the pond began to shift and shimmer, forming a glowing doorway made of swirling golden light. The gnome's lantern floated to the surface, shining like a key to another world. The princess stepped closer, her heart racing with wonder and fear. She felt the pull of the magic calling her name. Taking a deep breath, she placed her hand upon the glowing light. At that moment, she stepped into the unknown. The princess found herself in a land unlike anything she had ever seen. Giant flowers bloomed all around her, their petals glowing like lanterns in every color of the rainbow. The sky shimmered with hues of pink, blue, and gold, glowing like a dream painted in light. Talking animals greeted her warmly, bowing and smiling as though she were a beloved guest. "Welcome, princess," they said joyfully, "you have entered the land of magic." Her eyes widened with wonder, her heart filled with joy. In the center of this enchanted land, the gnome stood waiting, his lantern glowing brighter than ever. Suddenly, his body was surrounded by radiant light, and before the princess's astonished eyes, he transformed. The small gnome disappeared, replaced by a handsome young prince dressed in royal garments. The princess gasped, her heart racing as she realized the truth. You were never just a gnome!" she exclaimed. The prince bowed deeply, smiling with gratitude. The prince explained that long ago, a curse had turned him into a gnome until someone pure of heart showed him kindness. "Only when a princess willingly followed me, without fear or greed, could the spell be broken," he said softly. His staff glowed with ancient magic as he spoke, filling the air with shimmering light. The princess listened closely, her heart touched by his story. She realized that her curiosity and trust had freed him from his curse. The princess looked at the frog with curiosity as the creature hopped closer to the glowing fountain in the middle of the forest. The frog dipped its little green hand into the sparkling water, and suddenly a bright light covered the entire clearing. To the princess's astonishment, the frog began to change shape, growing taller and more human with each moment. His skin shimmered, his eyes glowed like emeralds, and finally, a handsome prince stood before her in royal garments. The princess gasped in amazement, realizing the frog had never been ordinary, but a prince trapped under a cruel curse. The prince bowed and thanked her for her kindness and bravery, which had finally broken the enchantment. The prince began to tell his story, his voice filled with sorrow and relief as he recalled the past. He explained that a jealous sorcerer had cast a wicked spell on him, turning him into a frog forever. The only way to break the curse was for someone pure-hearted to befriend him without fear or disgust. The princess had done exactly that, treating him kindly when others would have turned away in fright. Her compassion, her bravery, and her willingness to listen to the frog's words had freed him at last. Tears filled the princess's eyes as she realized her kindness had changed his life forever. The prince gently took the princess's hand, his eyes sparkling with gratitude and admiration. He promised her that he would remain her loyal friend and protector for the rest of his life. The princess smiled warmly, happy to have gained not only a new friend but also a powerful ally. The animals of the forest clapped their paws, chirped happily, and danced around them in celebration. The bond between the princess and the prince was no longer about a promise, it was about trust and love. Together, they vowed to face whatever challenges might come in the future. The princess and the newly freed prince made their way back toward the castle hand in hand. Along the way, villagers gasped in amazement at the sight of the prince who had returned from nowhere. The story of the frog prince spread quickly, and people gathered on the streets to cheer for them. The princess's heart swelled with joy as she realized she had done something truly remarkable. The king and queen awaited them at the castle gates, their faces filled with shock and happiness. The prince bowed respectfully, ready to tell his tale and ask for their blessings. The king and queen embraced their daughter, overjoyed to see her safe and stronger than ever. When the prince revealed his true identity and story, the royal family listened with compassion and awe. The king praised his daughter for her courage, wisdom, and for showing kindness to a creature others might ignore. The queen smiled, seeing that her daughter's heart was filled with love and empathy. They welcomed the prince into the palace as a guest, treating him with the respect he deserved. The entire court celebrated, grateful for the miraculous turn of events. Days passed, and the princess and prince spent more time together within the castle gardens. They talked about their dreams, their hopes for the kingdom, and the lessons they had learned. The princess enjoyed his gentle humor, while the prince admired her bravery and pure heart. Together, they began to plan ways to bring kindness and fairness to the people. The bond between them grew stronger with every passing day, becoming something unbreakable. What started as an unusual friendship had blossomed into a partnership filled with trust and warmth. To celebrate the prince's return and the princess's courage, a grand festival was announced. Colorful banners decorated the streets, and the townsfolk prepared feasts, music, and joyful dances. The princess and prince rode together in a golden carriage through cheering crowds. Children waved flowers, musicians played cheerful tunes, and the kingdom glowed with happiness. The prince thanked the people for their kindness, while the princess encouraged them to always be compassionate. The celebration lasted for days, reminding everyone of the power of kindness and bravery. The princess realized that her small act of compassion had changed an entire destiny. She thought about how easily she could have ignored the frog and walked away that day. But instead, she chose kindness, and that choice had broken an ancient and terrible curse. The prince reminded her that true beauty lies in the heart, not in outward appearances. Together, they shared this lesson with everyone they met, inspiring people throughout the land. The kingdom became known for its fairness, kindness, and respect for all creatures. The princess and prince spent their days exploring the kingdom and caring for the people. They worked side by side, helping solve problems and spreading hope wherever they went. The princess discovered her courage had grown, while the prince felt joy in serving others. Together, they dreamed of building a future filled with peace, friendship, and prosperity. The bond between them deepened into love, shining brighter with every adventure they shared. Their story became one of the most beloved tales in the history of the kingdom. Years later, the princess and the prince stood together, overlooking their flourishing kingdom. They had kept their promises to each other and continued to spread kindness everywhere. The people loved them deeply, for they ruled with fairness, compassion, and strength. The princess still remembered the little frog who once sat by the fountain in the forest. That memory reminded her every day that small acts of kindness can change the world. And so, the princess, the prince, and all their friends lived happily ever after. And so, dear friends, the story of the gnome reaches its gentle end, leaving behind a warm glow in our hearts. We have learned that kindness, no matter how small, can change lives and spread happiness like ripples in a pond. Remember, true magic lies not in wands or spells, but in the way we treat others with love and compassion. Just like the gnome, we too can bring light into someone's darkest days by offering a smile, a helping hand, or a kind word. Carry this story with you as a reminder that friendship and kindness are treasures greater than gold. Until we meet again for another magical bedtime tale, may your dreams be sweet and full of wonder. True friendship, kindness, and keeping promises can break the strongest of curses and open the doors to happiness. When we treat others with respect and care, no matter how they look, we discover their real worth and create bonds that last forever.